What's up, real world climbers? This video is going to be all about setting up a spray wall. So behind me I have this 20-degree overhanging wall, and there's a lot of holds already on here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this wall into a spray wall, meaning it's going to have just holds splattered all over. Basically anywhere I can fit a hold, I'm going to put a hold. One of the beautiful things about having a spray wall is there are various apps on your mobile device that you can take a photo of your wall, and then you can mark the different holds that you want to use for various routes, and then you can save them for future use. And it's like having a systems board, like a moon board, except for it's your own holds in your own orientation. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up the wall itself. We're going to be making sure we have a good mix of holds all over the wall. And then in the next video on this topic, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up the apps themselves. And there are several of them out there, and so I plan on using a few of them, the more popular ones, and doing a comparison and seeing which ones have the best features, which ones are the most user-friendly, all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that video as well. So as you can see behind me, I've got this wall, and there are quite a few holds already on here. Some of them are specific to routes that I've already set, so I'm going to leave those on there. And so the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to be removing any holds that are not currently being used for routes, with the exception of maybe the footholds down here on the bottom. And then I'm going to be starting from scratch. Alright, so I think I got them all. I did choose on purpose to leave a few. I am starting from a little bit of a head start because, like we talked about, I have lots of holds already in the wall. But if you were starting from a blank slate, this next step is where you would want to start as well. So in this step, what you're going to do is you're going to take your wall and you're going to break it into a grid. In essence, what I want is I want to have a jug in each of the different sections, and I want to have a pinch in each of the different sections, and pockets in each of the different sections, and crimps in each of the different sections, in lots of different orientations and things like that. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take my bins, and I have my bins sorted by hold type, and we're just going to bring them out one at a time. I do have a lot of jugs already on this wall. I am going to start there as well, but a lot of the jugs are already utilized with this gold tape here in my endurance weave, and so I don't think I'm going to have to put a ton of jugs on. But I want to make sure that I at least have a jug in each quadrant. So let's take a little field trip over to the hold bins. I've recently revamped my hold organization, and so it's even easier to find certain types of holds. So what I've got is I've got a dedicated bin for each of the hold types. So I've got in-cut crimps, I've got edges that are more flat, I've got pockets and pinches, and then slopers and jugs. And then up top here I've got all my screw-on holds in their own bin, all the holds that use the martini shaped bolt in another bin. So it's really easy to find the hold type that I want, and so since I'm starting with jugs, I'm just going to grab this bin and bring it into the climbing area. So I think I've got the 6 holds that I want picked out, and so now I'm going to go ahead and put them on the wall inside those sections. And I'm not going to just put all of these jugs like down pulling. I'm going to tweak the angle as well. Alright, so I think I have all the jugs. And now next I'm going to do pockets. Alright, so I picked out some holds, throw them on the wall. So next up I'm going to do pinches. If you haven't figured it out, I'm saving kind of crimps and edges for last. So I've got pinches here and here and here and here and here and here. But I don't really have anything up top, so I'm thinking I'm going to do a pinch up there, maybe a pinch up there in the left triangle, and maybe a pinch in this area. So like this one I'm conveniently putting next to another existing hold. and it's just because it's a small pinch, it fits really nice there. And so I'm being strategic on certain T-nut placements as well. Safe. Next we have slopers. Slopers are my nemesis. So I'm going to want to have some on here so I can work this. Alright, I think that's good for slopers. Now with the in-cut crimps particularly, I'm going to make sure not to set very many of them down pulling. I already have quite a few down pulling ones, so these ones, they're going to be more angular. Alright, now, as you can see, I've kind of gone through all the main hold bins and the hold types, but there's still quite a few T-nuts open. So now I'm going to flip over and I'm kind of going to go back through some of those hold types, but this time with the bucket of holds that are specific to the Martini bolts. So they tend to be a little bit smaller, but there are some decent size, some decent in-cut holds there, but they're going to kind of fill in the gaps here. I'm also trying to make sure I get in some holds that I really don't use that often, or these are some newer holds that I haven't used much, and so I'm going to try that as well. This one's been notoriously hard to use. Let's see about maybe using it on here. This here is one of my favorite holds. Again, it's just a simple hold. I don't know why it's one of my favorites. It's just this little dish, kind of slopey dish here, but really simple hold. This is a Metolius hold, a classic Metolius shape, and I've had it from like since my first wall. So maybe that's why it's my favorite, the nostalgia of it. Another one of my all-time favorites. This one I believe is a Franklin hold. I don't even know if they're making holds anymore. Where do I want it though? Where do I want my super comfy crimp to go? There. I'm getting close to filling all the holes, and I'm just going to come back here when all the holes are filled, including the footholds down on the bottom, which I've been holding off on until the very end. So that was actually a little bit more complicated than I thought to fill every T-nut, and here's why. I actually ran out of bolts. I mean, I have some more bolts, but like they're really a lot of longer ones, and so a lot of the holds wouldn't work with those longer ones, so I had to actually like swap out bolts from one to another. But as you can see, every single T-nut, pretty much, with the exception of a couple up here that are really not positioned well, every single T-nut is filled. But we're not done yet. So now we have all these gaps to fill with screw-on holds. So like you can see right here, this is where two pieces of plywood meet, and so I don't really have T-nuts close to the edge of the plywood in certain spots. So this is a prime opportunity to put some screw-on holds. And then even with all the T-nuts filled, I still have, you know, some pockets like up here and, you know, over here and, you know, in various spots. So I'm going to strategically put in some screw-on holds. I'm also going to put in some screw-on holds up on the 2x4s up there, and maybe even along the arete of that triangle up there as well, just to again give me more options. So as I do that, there's going to be certain parts of my wall that I think are going to be a little bit harder to capture in a photo, to, you know, mark where the holds are in one of those apps I was talking about a little bit earlier. So that's a challenge I'm going to have to figure out when I get to the app setup side of things. And remember that that video is coming next week. So like areas like the underside of this volume or the left side of this volume, anything over on this transition wall, any of these holds that are over here on the arete are going to be harder to see and mark. So I still think they should be able to be on in my spray wall, so I just have to figure out how I'm going to do that. So as I pick out some of these holds, I'm going to pick out, you know, traditionally some hand holds up here near the top. I do have some open space for footholds down at the bottom, and I definitely have some screw-on footholds that I can utilize. And then, like I said, maybe some more kind of finishing style holds up that can go up on these 2x4s. And then this is my bin dedicated to screw-on holds. There are a lot of screw-on holds already on the wall, so this is just the things that I kept aside for more strategic purposes. So like this one here is like pretty much a pyramid. It's pretty much all slopey, and I don't know, unless it's on a volume like this, which is actually not a bad idea. Unless it's on a volume like that, it's probably not usable, so I'm going to use this as a foot. It'll be interesting because it's definitely going to be a tricky foot because of how sloped it is. I got distracted. I found a T-nut hole that wasn't filled. So now I think I'm done with the footholds here, and so now I'm going to move on to more handhold styles and filling them in here. I don't have a ton to pick from, but I've got some pockety ones, kind of tricky little crimpy ones. I even have this like juggy one here, juggy screw on. I'm thinking I might put that as like a finishing hold up on the wood there. So like this one here can be used as a decent like crimpy handhold, but it's also a pretty tricky foothold. So I want to put this maybe somewhere in the middle where it'll eventually get used as a foot as well. This pocket I think I'm going to put way up on the arete here. And that one I think is going to be tough to even use, but gotta make some tough rubs too, right? Oh man, should I put one here too? I mean, I could go forever on this. Alright, I promise, I think this is the last one. I think this is the last one. Now I could actually put some in this seam down here too, but they're too close to this underneath. If I ever get rid of this volume here, I would put more holds there too. And clearly there's some T-nuts behind this as well. Whew, there you have it. That is a lot of holds. And if I hadn't run out of bolts, I might have even put more holds over here on this transition wall and tried to get that in on my spray wall as well. And that might have to be later on down the road because I just genuinely ran out of bolts to use. I mean, that's amazing. Check this out. So to recap, that's what I would do to set up a spray wall, is I would coordinate it off into different quadrants or sections, make sure that I have a representation of each of the hold types in each of those quadrants, and then fill in with various other holds. The smaller holds tend to fill in easier afterwards, so maybe start with the bigger holds first, and then move on to filling in holes, keeping in mind to not just orient everything as down pulling. So, you know, if I got a lot of crimps, which I really love crimps, I'm not going to put them all as straight down pulling, but I'll have them side pulls and Gastons and even underclings and things like that. Now that I have the wall, I'll take a picture of it and I'm going to upload it into these various apps. So keep an eye out for the video that comes out next week. I'll put it right up here once it's done. And if you're liking this content, if you're getting value out of it, I would love it if you would click the chains on the subscribe button so I can see you in future videos.